with it. Thank you, Jacques, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
I think it's a lot of time that I am in this European environment, and I met with Director General saying, oh, 20 years ago we met together and we discussed. So when coming here, I was not sure that I was a pupil or a teacher. I've never been a teacher, but so why not? I will play with you today. As Jack just mentioned, j'ai plusieurs casquettes. À la fois
I wear a number of hats. I'm a doctor, a researcher, an astronaut, twice over astronaut, in fact, minister in research, European affairs, and today president of two very beautiful science centers in Paris, Universcience, science and industry, discoveries. And I wanted to share with you a few ideas based on the whole of my life spent in science, technology. It was a great privilege for me, but I worked with passion. I had a passionate desire to communicate, and so perhaps I could make a few points which are linked to my great experience and my white hair.
Dear to my heart, science communication. And as you said, Jack, you underline the importance of the increased public understanding of science. And that's really words that for me are really meaningful. As you said, nowadays, every aspect of our daily lives is reliant on science and technology. Our lifestyles, our housing, ways of communicating, learning, all this part of our culture, in the general sense of the word, incorporates the benefits of science, of these advances in science. But I have this interrogation about culture. For many of European citizens, science and technology do not belong to what we call culture. When we speak of culture, we invariably think of literature, art, perhaps history. But do we think of science saying culture? Usually not. Science seems maybe so distant, so complex. It seems reserved to a happy few. But really the good news for us today is that it is not an irreversible situation. We must convince everyone that science is not incomprehensible. As a scientist, a former astronaut, a minister for science, my aim is not to make everyone an expert in all disciplines, even science disciplines. But I am deeply convinced that basic knowledge of science is necessary for us to understand the world, we live and play our full part as responsible citizens. And more than that, then science can also open up wonderful new horizons. Not only 2020, more than that. Science is not just knowledge, it's also a state of mind. If everyone could adopt the researcher state of mind, and by that I mean being curious, innovating, trying to understand more and more in quest for curiosity and exploration, wouldn't it be great? And also I would say that science affects our state of mind because through research projects, for instance, it gives us hope and amazement to hold on. But now the question, and we will discuss the question is how? How can we communicate science in a non-boring way, in an appealing, I would say, integrated, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, but yet rigorous way? You wanted us today to talk about our personal experience of communicating science. So I'm pleased to do that as the president of Universcience, as I just described this new science center in Paris emerging from the alliance between the Palais de la Découverte and Cité des Sciences et de l'Industrie. And I learned a lot of things. For 2 years, I'm now in charge of this function. And one has been underlined in a report that was submitted, I think it was last year, to President Obama. An interesting distinction that I would share with you between a form of education that prepares students and an education that inspires them. And basically, I would say, maybe you're dealing also with education in school or around school. I would say that while our schools are responsible for providing much of the education that prepares science museum, association, media, seem to offer something that school cannot. Inspiration, mainly by innovation, focusing on spheres and methods often neglected because no time, because rules, because programs by schools. We can develop, and we need to develop, new learning environments to stimulate investigation, original approaches, information sharing, to encourage the development of communities where knowledge is exchanged in a dynamic way. Experiment, and we will share some experience of that, highly varied forms of scientific outreach. And I add to that, create leading edge content by using new technologies. I was speaking about new communities. I said create content on purpose. And that brings me to another important clarification of what I learned for these years. We deal with public understanding of science when we talk about science communication. I'll think, and you too, in public engagement and dialogue with knowledge. Not only do we understand our world more fully, but we are able to take responsible decisions. That's the concept of empowerment. J'essaye de traduire empowerment en français.
I tried to translate empowerment into French, but I can't find the right word.
Persons acquire something that gives them legitimacy. They develop added value potential, increase their independence, their responsibility. So for me, science communications aims to empower citizens, and it's a real challenge today. All the major stakes of our 21st century, sustainable energy, genetically modified organism, to name but a few, well, all that we have need scientific explanation to establish our position, form an opinion, and sometimes very acute discussion, and participate. Of course, science will not tell us what to do, because it removes neither uncertainty nor freedom of action. But knowing more can clarify our choices by helping us to anticipate the consequences and giving us confidence in research and innovation. In 2010, a Eurobarometer dedicated to science shows that a majority of European citizens, 53%, indicate that scientists, because of their knowledge, have a power that makes them dangerous. The survey also showed that the respondents who consider themselves very informed about scientific discoveries are much more likely to disagree with this statement. That means that the more you are informed, the less you fear. And the more you'll consider that innovation can be a source of progress. To conclude, to be brief, in the Lisbon strategy, cheveux blancs, 2000 for the EU, we claim to become a knowledge economy centered on an ambitious research and innovation agenda. And a major driving force behind growth and development in science and technology was then seen in investment in education. So let's not forget how important is education. And saying education, it's for me educating not only children but adults. And educating is in a certain way, not only communicating science. It's really the way to improve the bond between science and society. And reading carefully this weekend the Horizon 2020, I feel a lot of very, very interesting things about innovation, excellence, policies, but I think this is not enough. Science communication must be addressing to every single citizen, whatever the age. So one of my main messages was thinking about the education in large term of education for the young generation and for every single citizen. And that's typically in the heart of the discussion we will have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudie. Noted some key words: inspiration, empowerment, education, clearly. Now, totally different background comes Leo and Wright. You see, chairman of Discovery Science and Engineering. Leo is much more than that, of course. He's been for decades, don't want to even mention the number of years, following science. He's a journalist by training and is the other side of this science communication equation. Leo, please.